Hello, John Talley here with Partzilla.com. Today, we're continuing on our project, which is a 2006 Kawasaki KLX110. Now, we've already done the top end and the clutch, but today we're going to focus on the front and rear tires and rims setup. Now, we're asking a little bit more out of this little machine than to carry around the standard 8-year-old. We're actually going to put an adult rider on it because we're converting it into a pit bike. So the next logical step is to upgrade the rims and the spokes, better tires, and heavier duty tube. So if you're ready, let's step over and look at the parts we're going to use to get this thing up to snuff. Okay, before we get started, let's take a look at the parts. For the tires, we went with the Dunlop Geomax. They have a little bit stronger sidewall, so they'll be able to handle those lateral stresses. Now for the rims, of course, we're going to go with the Excel Takasagos. Really well-known company, and they just have an exceptional product. They're easy to lace up, as you will see later, and they're going to come out really true. Now to hold everything in place, we're going to use a set of spokes from BBR. A little bit thicker diameter, but they are going to mount to the same hub on the inside, which is important. Now to keep everything inflated, we went with the IRC tubes, a little bit heavier duty. Once again, they're going to be able to handle the stresses of a heavier rider on this machine. That's everything we're going to use. Let's start off by getting that rear tire removed, and then we're going to dive into this project. Let's pull the cotter pin on the axle bolt. This may be the only 2006 KLX 110 that actually has this cotter pin still in. I'm impressed by that, sorry. Although I seriously doubt it's original. Now let's loosen up that axle bolt. Now, as you can tell, this chain is stretched all the way out, as indicated by these adjusters, but in another video I'll walk you through the process to replace both sprockets and the chain. I think we're going to need some grease in there eventually, guys, when we go to reinstall this. Certainly not the worst one we've ever had to do. I think that honor belongs to the CRF 450R. That should clean up okay. Let's go ahead and remove the brake drum. All right, stay in there for a minute. Go and get that chain off, then we'll just roll the whole thing back. Ooh, more stuff we're going to need to replace. All right, and if you're curious, we will be upgrading and replacing the brakes as well in a separate video. We're doing all kind of stuff to this machine. Let's go ahead and let some air out of it. All right, let's get it broken down. See if we can get this bead to break loose. Shouldn't be that tough. Nothing as fun as working with really old, small motocross tires. But we'll get it. Not quite getting far enough to bite into there. Oh, there you go. This game's just about over. See there? Easy. All I'm trying to do now is just get enough distance in here and grab that tube. This tire is ancient. And when they get this old, they can be really hard to get out of there. Whew. This has been in there a long time. I mean, this thing is frozen on there. I mean, it's just slide off now. I mean, you should be able to just take it and go. All right, kids, try as I might, I cannot get that to clear without a little bit of help. And if you haven't bought a can of this stuff, do yourself a favor, go ahead and buy it before you start, because this is just not an easy process. Not on the rim this small with a tire this old. Whew. Finally had to put it on the floor and put a little weight on it. Weight I've got. There. No, that wasn't easy at all. So just prepare yourself. I mean, look at that. That is a tough, worn out, hard as a brick tire, period. And I wish I knew these machines better, because somebody has replaced this tire. I wonder if those are larger than OEM spokes that I'm looking at. I mean, the ones that are going in are going to be even bigger. Their heads are definitely bigger. All right, kids, let's go ahead and break this wheel down. Now, someone decided they were going to use electrical tape. I guess it's better than nothing as their rim strap. But hey, whatever. It worked, kind of. Now, on this one, we will be breaking it all the way down, taking it all the way apart. Now, is that really necessary? Not absolutely, because we don't need the rim, we don't need the spokes, unless you're going to reuse your rim. All we are after this is this main hub. But this one I'm going to break down the correct way. Now, for the front one, out comes the cutoff wheel, and we're going to just cut through all these guys instead of having to fight that tire off. Just not worth it, because I'm not going to reuse any of this. But this one I'm going to go ahead and break down the correct way. And FYI, this is a 5mm wrench that I'm using. Now, generally, you can get a couple of them loosened up and then remove them the rest of the way with a screwdriver on the outside. The real trick is, am I going to be able to get that other tire, or the new tire, mounted without scarring up the rim? Now, the ones coming in from the inside, right at 90 degrees. The ones from the outside, not quite 90 degrees. That's how you tell an inner from an outer. Inside, outside. Let's finish getting these guys out of here. One hub. Time to go clean it up, then I'll be right back. All right, guys, we've got her cleaned up, but I'm not really crazy about the way this bearing feels. So we're going to go ahead and replace it. Now, there's a caveman way where you can just use a threaded rod or a small rod and knock out the bearings, but we're going to do it the right way. We're going to use a wheel bearing remover set. It's actually my first time using this particular extractor. All right, guys, the way this works is you select the correct size collet, you put it on the outside of the bearing that you're going to remove, and then you use one of your drifts, whichever one will fit inside that particular diameter, to go inside these grooves. Now, once you do that, put it on a hard surface and go ahead and set the drift to where it expands out on the collet, and that'll grab the bearing. Now, at that point, bring the entire assembly over to where you've got room to knock it out. Hit it dead center with a hammer, and she should knock free. And then we'll knock out the other side. Now, I could just knock it out with the drift, but I want to see it do it again. Now, I'll tell you what, guys. I'm impressed with it. I wasn't so sure this was going to work. Apparently, the guys at Motion Pro, they know what they're doing. pretty cool. All right guys, before we press these in, the bearings already have some grease in there, but we want to add a little bit to that just to make sure. So let me get that done and then we'll knock them in with a driver set. Neat little kit Motion Pro makes. There's so many different scenarios that'll handle. Case in point, we want to drive this one in until it bottoms out, and there is an edge down here that we want to get it to. Trick is, you don't want to press on the inner part, so you just want to go to the outer part, which this one does. Not only does it go out to the edge, it also goes down in there. And you say, oh John, that's just a 1 in 100 shot. It happens more often than you think. They've really thought this kit through when it comes to the applications that it can be used for, especially the Japanese manufacturers. So I like it. I like it so much this is the second one because I wore out the other one after 3 years. So that ought to tell you. I still have the other one. It's just, it's been beat on a lot. So we're going to stop there for just a second. I do want to do a quick test fit with the axle just to make sure that that spacer on the inside is lined up. Good to go. Now let's get back to the real crux of this video, which is lacing up a new rim. All right, let's start with our outer. So in other words, they're going to be going in from this direction, and that's the 90-degree one. And we've started it where it's going to go to that same wear point. The inner. Now we're just going to repeat this pattern all the way around, just back and forth. Don't worry, it's going to come together eventually. All right, now we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Start with an out. At this point you're thinking, I'm never going to get this together. Yes, you will. Do they give you a couple of extra ones? That's nice of them. Alright. Now the next fun part. Getting all of these to go in the right direction. Alright guys, let's start feeding them through one at a time and just put a couple of turns because we're going to be shifting it around a pretty good bit. We'll start with the outer edge or outer spokes first, go to the inner, flip it over, do the inner and then the outer. That'll be the sequence of events that's going to unfold. Alright, that's basically it. It's going to look good when we're finished. Now we just need to true it. So our starting point is to get all of these bottomed out, and we want to just barely seat them. Once we do that, then we'll go back and take a look at it and start figuring out how to adjust it to get it to walk in the right direction. And the first thing we want to do is take out the hop if we can. Now I can tell you from experience, we're going to find the hop is going to be located almost exactly where these two ends are brought together at the seam. I mean, as good as Excel is, it's impossible to get around. And 99% of the time, that hop, that's where it's going to be. So let's take a quick look and just get an overall idea of what's going on with it. Now what we're looking for here is just to get a general feel of how out of whack it is. We're looking at the side-to-side movement and then the up and down as well, or the hop, so to speak. We do want to get it as close as we can to true, but more importantly, we want to make sure that we have the correct torque on all these spokes so it doesn't loosen up and then damage itself. So she's probably out maybe 2 to 3 millimeters. So this shouldn't be too bad to do. What we're going to do with the hop first is find our low point. So it looks like our low spot right there. And it's actually not that bad. what we're going to do is pick 4 this direction and 4 that direction and just do a quarter of a turn to see if we can bring her up. Now as you're doing this, if they start getting too tight, you may need to go on the other side and loosen up just a bit. The real trick is small adjustments. Just make sure you're actually starting with everybody even. That's really the hardest part, in my humble opinion. Before we go too much further, I want to start doing the side to side, because we'll get the side to side back into focus, and then we'll look at the hop one more time. It's very seldom have I been able to do one aspect completely and then do the other aspect and not have to go back and adjust just a little bit more. All right, I've got her within 2 millimeters, easy. So I think we're good to go. Next, let's look at the side to side. Getting close here. So the midpoint of our closeness is about right there. So let's put just a small mark here, and we'll work with this section, and this section. Well, we'll go ahead and do 4. So what we want to do is pull it over to our left. So we're only going to be working from this side. Once again, small increments, and just do quarter turns. All right, we made some progress, but let's do that one more time. Pull these 2 and these 2. You're doing this pretty much by feel. One of them feels loose, then it needs to be caught up. Like I said, the trick is do this in small increments. Otherwise, you start getting things out of whack, putting too much tension on one or more spokes, and you pretty much have to start over again. Let's see where we ended up. That's pretty good, guys. It's got a little bit of hop to it because of that joint, but as far as our side to side, we're on it. Let's tighten these 3 sections equally. All right, guys, that's about as good as it gets. Now it is time to actually torque all these down, and the way we're going to do this is actually in 3 passes. Our start and stop point is, of course, where the valve stem comes through. And what we're going to do is tighten this one, skip 2, and then go to the 3rd. The next pass, we'll move to the next one, skip 2, and then tighten it. Last pass, move to the next one, skip 2, and then we'll complete the process. What that is doing is alternating back and forth as we're going all the way around. And the number we're looking for is 35 inch-pounds, and that's according to the Kawasaki manual. I mean, the other spokes, they were a little bit smaller. These are a little bit thicker, of course, you know, a little bit heavier duty, but 35 inch-pounds should certainly get it in the ballpark. And we're going to use a very small torque wrench to accomplish this, specifically made for spokes. And this particular kit has got a full range of all the different sizes that are commonly found on most rims. And you don't just go until it torques, you do a quarter turn. Now if it goes ahead and you hear it click, well then you don't need to go the full quarter of a turn, but don't go further than a quarter of a turn as we're going through this. I think at this point we can just get at our stop and end point, and let's just check each one, and if there's a straggler or 2, it won't take much to get it torqued. So we're just going to go one after another at this point. A little bit of a time-consuming project, but if you're around these machines long enough, it's worth learning how to do. That way you can just handle it at your house instead of taking it to the dealership. A little bit of hop, but I'm fine with that. And that little waver is just the seam. All right, guys, it's not absolutely necessary that you go buy a truing stand to do this. I mean, if you own a set of jack stands, just run the axle in it. And that'll get you in the ballpark. That makes it easy to do the hop, but a little bit more challenging to do the side to side because you have to keep the the wheel from walking one side to the other. All right, new rim strap. Doing a little upgrade from having electrical tape on it. Now, I mentioned before, if you don't own a can of this, get you some. Otherwise, good luck. It is not a lot of fun. The good part about this stuff, yes, it's slippery when it goes on, but once it dries or sets up, it actually locks the tire onto the rim pretty well. So it's not like just spraying it with like a lubricant, a silicone lubricant, which never goes away, and that would allow your tire to shift. That's not going to be the case with this stuff. And this is a non-directional setup, so just be careful of that. Make sure you don't have an arrow somewhere on yours. This one doesn't really seem to care. Yeehaw. Not hyper important, but there is going to be a dot. That's their balance point. Not that you're going to be able to know on a motocross bike, but it is good practice to line that up with your valve stem. So that's where we're going to go. All right, we don't want much air in here, just a little bit, maybe a pound or two at best. Next fun part, getting the valve stem. I've got it at least started. That's all we want. We do not want to tighten it all the way in because we want the tube to stay up into the tire so we don't pinch it when we start bringing the sidewall in. So let's start where the edge of that tube is. Start working her around. Real trick is to keep the bead down into this middle part of the rim to where it's got room to pull, and then go over the other side. We'll try to do this with just 2 tire irons, but sometimes having a third helps a lot. Like right now, which I have a third, but we'll try to do it without it. I really don't want to scratch it. I'm so close. With these tire irons, I can actually push up on the tire here on the hub, get it in there to grab, and then pull it over. So these have their advantages. All right. Well, let's go and put some air in there. The moment of truth. Did I puncture that tube? Hopefully not. Let's see where we've ended up. OEM calls for 14 PSI. We're going to go to 18. I won't hear it hissing at me, so that's a very good sign. She is ready to go back on the machine. We get to do all this again for the front tire. This is basically the same procedure as far as what we're going to be doing with the rims and tires. But the good part is, instead of taking the tire off and pulling off every single spoke, this time we're just going to cut all these out and go for what we need. Well, certainly easier than taking it out spoke by spoke, and it was actually a little bit fun. Now let's get this guy laced up. Now there's a couple of different ways. I've seen people do these small front rims for these little mini bikes, and each of them have their own idiosyncrasies, to say the least. The way that I'm going to approach it is I put in all the shorter ones first, and just kind of lay them down in the plane. And at that point, I start building up the longer ones from the top side. So, not hypercritical that these are in exactly the right direction. So, let's start with our outer set first. And those are going to be angled forward. This should be the last outer. Let's do our inners. Just put a couple of turns on them. All right, last one. So let's start with our inners. And remember, these are going to be pulling back. Is that my last inner? Yep. Everybody else is ready to go. That'll do it. Let's get them bottomed out. Well, as I said, getting it laced up, well, that was the majority of the battle. Truing it and getting the tire on, no big deal. She's on the machine and it's ready to go. But as you can see, I still have a lot of different projects to do on this particular series. Now, if you want to see those unfold, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. Well, that way you'll know when we drop the next video in this series. If you need any parts for your machine, why don't you come see us at Partzilla.com and we can get you taken care of. Have any questions? Why don't you leave them in the section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And hey, we just want to say thank you for shopping here with us at Partzilla, and we will see you in the next video. Y'all have a great day.